And welcome to the Pokemon section of this week's KayCast. So huge I had to split it in half, and yet I am still probably wondering if I could get away with splitting into thirds. Let's get right into it. For Pokemon Go news, there's been two updates. One that's kind of minor. There's going to be patterns so you can visually tell apart the 2, the 5, and the 10 kilometer eggs. Pokemon's types are now shown as icons when you go to the summary of the Pokemon, and Pokemon Go Plus has gotten some fix as well as the text. The real news though is a Halloween event that's been going on from October 26th to November 1st. Depending on when you're seeing this, you'll have a chance to go on the Pokemon Go right now, update it, and get in on this Halloween fun because man, it's great. There's nothing new added to the game per se, but essentially they changed a few elements within it. During this time frame, you'll run into more spooky Pokemon, including the ghost Pokemon Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar, Zubat and Golbat, Drowsy and Hypnos. And while it wasn't confirmed in the trailer, I personally have been running into more Meowths and Cubones than I normally do. On top of that, you get a bunch more candy during this time period. Double the candy for anything you catch, hatch, or transfer. And buddy Pokemon will earn candies 4 times as fast. Good example of this is if you have a Pikachu or Geodude, you'll earn 4 candies for every mile you walk. Yeah, every 4th of a mile you'll get a candy, which is pretty crazy. Pokemon that you may normally been hesitant to walk around because they take 3 kilometers to do so, will only take 3/4 of a kilometer to actually get a candy out of. I'm really trying to make use out of this to finally get enough candies for Pokemon like Nidorina and Gloom. I'm actually already up in the candies for Gloom. And if there's a Pokemon that normally would take 5 kilometers to get a candy from that you really want Pokemon candies for, maybe you really want to have a Dratini that you want to raise up into a Dragonite. I forget the exact amount, but I think it's a 1/4 of 5 kilometers. So whatever that is. Definitely easier than before though, so if you got a Pokemon you really want to walk, but the amount you have to walk to get a candy didn't seem worthwhile to you, this is your best chance. Though if you prefer to walk the Pokemon that take less kilometers to get candy, it'll still be worth your time because now you earn it 4 times as fast. I want to get into my impressions on all this, but before I do that, I do have one other story. I love this update, and it seems like I'm not the only one, because there's been several sources that have mentioned that Pokemon Go is back up to #1 in top grossing mobile games. As I'm checking this, it's back down to #2 on my phone personally, but yeah, it might still be #1 in total, or maybe it's the mobile market is just that fickle that it's already back down to #2, but it actually jumped back up to #1 for a little while, and I don't know, still being the #2 top grossing mobile game ever is still a pretty high accomplishment in my eyes. So now that I spent as much time as I possibly could without delaying the KayCast next week playing Pokemon Go with the Halloween update, I feel I can properly talk about my full opinion on said update. Long story short, it's really fun. I thought this would only be something that hardcore Pokemon Go fans like myself would enjoy. I didn't think it would be anything that would bring people back into the game, but apparently it's enough to convince some people because of the whole Pokemon Go going back into the top grossing game on mobile market for a little while, if not just top played game in general, or top download game, one of the two. But man, even though it's such a simple update, I am loving it so much. All they really did was just rearrange the encounter rates and make it easier to get candy, and yet That's really got me hyped for playing the game. There's so many Pokemon that I thought it would take forever before I'm ready to evolve, and yet a whole bunch of them are just from the extra candies I get from the buddy system. And I still got a couple more days to go, so maybe I can even get 1 or 2 more Pokemon ready to evolve before this update is up and through. Furthermore, the Pokemon that are now common in the updates are Pokemon that I don't really run into too often. Sure, Ghastlies aren't the rarest thing in the world, but it was a lot more common for me to find Pidgeys and Rattatas. And it's pretty much flip-flopped at this point. I've only ran into 1 Pidgey out of the whole weekend this Pokemon Go update's been going on. I'll be generous and say 2. Instead of Pidgeys, I've been running into a lot more Ghastlies. And instead of Rattatas, I feel like I'm running into Cubones more often. Cubone, if you remember a couple weeks ago when I talked about Cubone in the KayCast, I didn't run into a Cubone into the wild. And my first one was hatched out of an egg. Now I'm finding them pretty much everywhere I go. I think I got enough candies just to evolve a Cubone and Marowak already, just from catching them in the wild. And Meowth is a lot more common too. I think I'm in a similar boat where I can evolve a Persian now, just from catching and releasing all those Meowths. I keep calling it release even though it's transferring. Old school Pokemon's just stuck in my head. Sorry for that mix-up. There's actually only one thing that I dislike about the update, and it's not really related to Halloween theme at all. I do have to bring it up though, because it's really bugging the heck out of me. So, those of you who've been playing Pokemon Go may know that there was a glitch with the audio where if you swapped out of Pokemon Go and then swapped back in, you would lose all sound, even if you had those settings on. It sucks, but I think that's what allowed me to actually listen to podcasts while Pokemon Go was running. Because ever since they updated it, the glitch hasn't been an issue anymore. However, whenever I start up a podcast and switch back to Pokemon Go, that sound's gone. Even if I turn the music and sound effects off in Pokemon Go, I'm just forced to listen to utter silence while catching Pokemon. Lucky for me, I have the Go Plus, so I can just set up Pokemon Go, set up the Go Plus, turn it off, and still walk while listening to a podcast, using the Go Plus to pick up on Pokespots. And if I'm feeling ambitious and feel the need to listen to outside audio outweighs actually catching a Pokemon directly, I can just leave Pokemon Go off and try to catch it with the Go Plus. However, it still sucks because I really missed being able to listen to whatever I'm listening to while playing Pokemon Go directly, and not be forced to rely on the Go Plus if I just want to finish up listening to a podcast. On the bright side, I'm finally able to listen to the game's audio, and it is nice, but I feel like it's going to get old at this rate. But I can't imagine how bad this is going to be for people who don't want to fork money over for the Pokemon Go Plus. Trust me, I understand you guys. If it wasn't for the fact that I actually want to push walking more than actually playing Pokemon Go, and I wasn't using Pokemon Go more as a setup to walk, I'd be right in that boat with you guys. And this update makes it impossible to actually enjoy anything else while you're walking if you want to play Pokemon Go, because even putting it in the game's normal sleep mode won't allow you to listen to other audio. That part sucks especially. I really hope it gets fixed in a future update. However, I totally get that this would be something that Niantic overlooks. Heck, it's really minor that I'm pretty sure a lot of people won't even notice that it's an issue. Now, I know the easy option may be to go to the social media page for Pokemon Go and complain in every reply you can imagine. Tracking Pardon me. However, I feel there's a much more effective way to do so. One that actually has a chance to get in the hands of a developer and not a person managing a social media page who has no development experience. Heck, they might just be an intern running it for all I know. Now there's gonna involve something complicated known as steps. So listen closely, I'm only gonna explain this once. First, go to the Pokemon Go's website, www.pokemongo, all that's one word, no hyphen, no special symbol above the E in that, .com. Once there, scroll to the very bottom, and in the blue section you'll see a link called Customer Service. Click that, and you will then find a link to click called Submit a Request. Close to the top but not quite there. Click that. You'll get a bunch of options to pop up, including delete my Pokemon Go account, report an issue with Gym or Pokespot, report a bug, help with the Go Plus, etc., etc. Now, the most appropriate one I can find for my personal request is report a bug. I shall click that and fill out the form there. No, wait. Scroll through here and make sure that my concern or issue has not already been addressed, and the frequently asked questions like what's the new sightings feature, Pokecoins don't appear in my account, trainer progress reset to level 1, etc., etc. If I scroll all the way to the bottom and still haven't found my concern, there will be a link in just text called Contact Us if your issue is not addressed above. You click that, scroll down, click Report a Bug, and you'll have a form to fill out. It'll ask some random information varying from contact, more details on your issue, the device that you are using, the version of the app, and once you fill all that out, you will be able to submit the form. You may not get a response, but let's be real, you're not going to get a response replying to the social media page of Pokemon Go either. On a happier note, overall I do enjoy the Halloween update. There's just that one minor issue that doesn't affect the gameplay, but affects me because of the way I personally choose to enjoy the experience of Pokemon Go. And I really think it would be a good idea for them to do this sort of thing in the future. I can think of the perfect time to do it again too. During December, everyone will be celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, and other various winter holidays. And it would be a perfect time to do something kind of like the Halloween update, but with ice Pokemon. Only problem is that I'm not quite sure how they would implement it without breaking the balance of the game, because ice type Pokemon are generally more rare because 1, there's less of them, 2, most of the ice Pokemon are already powerful Pokemon. The only ice Pokemon I can think of from Gen 1 that would work as commons is the ice water types like Shelter and Seal, and heck, I think some of those Pokemon don't gain a sub-ice type until they're fully evolved. I mean, if Gen 2 was out, this would be a lot easier because there'd be more ice types to work with, and there'd be Delibird. And it just feels criminal to have a Pokemon holiday related thing without Delibird. But they can't implement a Pokemon that doesn't exist in the game yet. I totally get that. You know, I want to flesh out this idea a little more though. I'll get back to you guys next week, and I'll dive more into my thoughts of what they could do for the future then. I just think this would be a really good idea because winter is coming. Winter is coming. For those of you who don't know, because you have the pleasure of living in an area that's consistently warm, everything begins to die. The world around us gets colder. Water occasionally turns into a slushy sort of material called snow and falls from the sky until it stacks up by the foot to the point where it impairs our day-to-day functions in life. I love it. However, for people who aren't a madman or crazy in general, winter tends to be a time of year where people stay inside. I personally use it as an excuse to stay inside, although this year, because of Pokemon Go, I might stay outside a bit more. But I know this is going to stop a lot of people from going outside as much. It's just a natural way things work in life. Things are most popular when they first come out, and over time, interest wanes away. And outside activities wade away to very minimum amounts when it's colder and less comfortable to be outside. They're just common facts of life. And I bring this up because if Niantic doesn't want Pokemon Go activity to plummet during the winter season, they're gonna need something big. Heck, I think even with something big, activity in the game's gonna drop a little bit because people don't want to be outside when it's cold and uncomfortable. And I can't blame them. However, it would help. And I think I'm finally done talking about Pokemon Go for the week. But it's not over yet. I haven't even touched Sun and Moon yet. Brace yourself, people. This is going to be a long one. We're here for the long haul. And now it's time for Sun and Moon Hype, where I talk about the latest Sun and Moon news for those of you who haven't taken the time to look it up. And I blab about everything I think about it as well. It goes without saying, but if you are trying to go into the games Pokemon Sun and Moon with as little information as possible, you might want to skip this section. It should be the last section, so I won't be upset if you tune out now. Because I won't be talking about anything that's not officially revealed. I will be talking about things that are officially revealed. And especially for this game, it seems like they've been officially revealing a lot of stuff. So, before you go, be sure to just like this on wherever you're watching it. I know I appreciate it. And feel free to interact with me on any sort of way you desire, either on YouTube, the place you listen to this to, or even my social media pages. For the YouTube video updates, there is Jacket K LPs. I do have a Twitter, although I do not hold myself accountable for anything that is non-update related you may hear on it as well. It's a very casual source, but if that doesn't scare you away, it is at Jacket Stuff. And the art pages that I've mentioned earlier on the KayCast, if those strike your interest as well. Either search Jacket K without the AY or Jacket K with the AY, and you'll come across them. So we got a lot of news in the latest trailer. One of those things being, the final forms of all the evolutions have officially been revealed. I know they've been leaked, but I was been trying to stay away from the leaks, and it must have worked because I don't remember what they look like in the pictures that were leaked. So I can't confirm if we already knew about this or not, minus the whole Pokedex leak. But what matters to me, and maybe to you, is that I went into the trailer with a fresh look at all these, except the Torracat evolution, because that one sticks out in my memory like a sore thumb. Because of all the, oh no, it's gonna be a firefighting type! Run for the hills! Bury your heads in the sand! Apologies for the extra hyperness. I guess that soda's actually taking effect today. Let's go in order though, shall we? First is the full evolution of Rowlett, because I already forgot what the middle evolution name was. It has evolved into Dadinduside, which I know I've butchered the pronunciation of horribly, but what's new? It's no longer a grass flying type, but instead a grass ghost type. And it has a signature move called Spirit Shackle. It's a physical ghost type move that prevents the foe from hitting once it hits. So I'm not positive it's going to work exactly like Fire Spin, or infection but as a physical attack, or if it's just a decently good move that once it hits you can't run away, but doesn't have a lingering effect like Fire Spin or Wrap. They didn't mention that much. And I know the Pokemon site has some additional flavor text about it, but I came across an interesting bit of trivia that I'd like to talk about instead. The Rowlett family line is actually based on a set of owls that were native to Hawaii. They're all dead now. They're extinct. Hence the final evolution being a grass ghost type. And I just ruined the Pokemon line for ya. I will blame the soda because I can. Next off we have the full evolved form of Litten, and that is Ensinar. 10 out of 10 pun there, guys. Like I've spoiled, it is a fire dark type, not the fire fighting that you may think of it as. And it's called a heal Pokemon, which may seem odd until you do some extra research, or other people do extra research and won't shut up about it on Twitter, where there's a type of wrestler known as a heal wrestler who basically acts like the bad guy so that the hero wrestler can look heroic when they defeat the foe. Interesting bit of trivia there for you. Oh cool, it actually does have an exclusive move. I just realized I forgot to finish my notes, so I'm just taking this right off the site. Darkest Soul Art is a dark physical move that only it can learn, and allows it to do damage while ignoring effects of any status change that the target might otherwise be affected by. So I assume this means that it ignores defense boost. It might even ignore evasion boost, which would be awesome, to do a good amount of dark type damage. And that trivia I mentioned about it, why it's the heal Pokemon, makes sense with the information we get off the site. It acts a little jerkish, even attacks trainers, which is something that I joke about being something only Shadow Pokemon do. Play Coliseum, play XD. They're good games, I swear. And they have a lot of fans. They act all serious and cold-hearted, but they hide all their happiness on the inside. Last but not least is the full evolution for Pablo and his Paramera. Or Paramina? I feel like it's going to be a while before we get official pronunciations on these things. Anyways, it's basically evolving the full for Mermaid, even getting Water Fairy, which I don't remember if the middle evolution had, but it doesn't strike me as it having that. And its signature move is Sparkling Area. It's a special water move only it can learn, and heals the burns of any target it strikes. Weird. I'll just say that. On the bright side, I don't find too many situations where it's actually going to be a bother, because odds are if you burn a Pokemon, it's not going to be a type that's weak to the burn. And I don't know, if it isn't a fire type and maybe like a rock or ground that you're using this move against, you'll use a different water move if it's burned. Otherwise, it's just a normal water move. This might have some potential for double battles, but unlike other moves you can target your partner with for an added effect, I don't really think it can work, because it's a damaging move as well as having the side effect of healing burns. And Pokemon that would normally negate water moves with abilities like Water Absorb, I assume that this healing burn effect wouldn't take place, because Water Absorb would happen first and just negate any damage, and I assume any effects, and just heal. However, if Water Absorb does work in a way where it can get this side effect of healing burns, I do see this move having potential in doubles and other multi-Pokemon battle types. Overall, I think they did a good job with the design. I know not everyone's going to agree with me, but I really think these designs are good. I think my favorite is actually the Rowlett line. It's actually enough to make me reconsider doing that, because I don't know about Palio's line. I like it in the fact that I acknowledge that it's a good design, but I just like Pablo's more clown-like features more. Like I said when I first started talking about the starters, I was leaning towards Pablo because it reminded me of LankyCon, and I don't really see that with the final evolution. It's a very nice Pokemon though. I don't know, I'm actually gravitating more towards Taurus Cat's line as well, now that I've seen the final evolution. And I still got some time before the game comes out to decide. Next thing about the trailer I want to talk about is how all the Guardian Pokemon were revealed. I noticed the gimmick that they have is that they all have a fairy subtype. It's been a while, so you might not remember, but we already know one of the Guardians, the electric fairy type. And there's 3 more Guardians, 1 for each of the islands, and they all have that fairy subtype, as well as an ability that affects the terrain around them, and they all have a signature move called Nature's Madness, which kind of works like Shadow Half. If you haven't played Pokemon XD, get on your butt and play that game, where it does a set amount of damage on HP. For Nature's Madness, it reduces the target's HP by half of its remaining HP, or half of its HP total. Give me 1 sec to double check that. Okay, the Pokemon site just says that it reduces the target's HP by half. So I'm gonna assume that's half total, which is really nice. Let me go in some sort of an order. First, of the Guardians, we have Tabo Blubo. He's a Grass Fairy type. His ability is Grassy Surge. Why am I giving genders? They're probably legendaries that don't have genders. Point being though, its ability is Grassy Surge. It'll turn the field into grassy terrain, something that's only been through a few select moves in the last generation of Pokemon. But since it's very possible to go through the game without running into this sort of effect, I should say, allow me to go into more detail. When the field has been turned into a grassy terrain, it boosts its grass type moves, and restores HP of all Pokemon that are standing on the ground. Note, you have to be standing on the ground for this to work. On top of that, moves like Earthquake, Magnitude, and Bulldoze will do half the damage they normally do. And Tabalubo seems more of a unaggressive, laid back, maybe even lazy Guardian. I summarized the description on the site as, it doesn't like unnecessary battles or scaring other Pokemon, but also shows no mercy to evildoers. On the site it mentioned that there was a time when thieves tried to enter his tomb, and it showed no mercy. It grew giant tree arms and smashed their faces off. I may be paraphrasing a little. Next on the Guardian list is Tapu Lele, a Psychic Fairy type. Its ability is Psychic Surge, and this is one I'm even less familiar with. Well, the whole Psychic Terrain thing. Technically, Psychic Surge as an ability is new. It's a terrain that's technically not, but I wouldn't blame you for having no idea that it existed. A Psychic Terrain, when it comes into play, boosts the power of any Psychic type moves used, and prevents them from being hit by priority moves, as long as those Pokemon are on the ground. My notes weren't very clear. What I mean is, when you're standing on the ground, not flying or floating, not only do any Psychic type moves you use get boost, but you also can't be hit by priority moves like Quick Attack or Aqua Jet. This works for both you and the opponent. As for notes, I'm a little more detailed on this one. Its scales can physically affect others and likes to scare them around. They can heal illnesses or injuries, yet the body can only withstand so many. So I assume bad things happen if you're exposed to too many. And yet, this Guardian, for the fun of it, will like to overexpose people in Pokemon to the scales. Its battling focuses more on winning through nutrition rather than pure strength. Last of the new Guardians is Tabu Fini, a water fairy type. It has the ability Misty Surge, which, surprise, turns the field into a misty terrain. I don't even recall misty terrain being in the last game, so this might actually be a new field effect. It might not, and I just haven't run into it, which I wouldn't be surprised. Like before, if a Pokemon is standing on the ground, it takes half damage from Dragon type moves, and it cannot be afflicted with status conditions or confusion. Just slightly contradictory to its flavor text, where it hates to risk harm to itself, even if it knows it can win, so it'll create a thick fog that leaves opponents to be confused and baffled and destroy themselves. Well, it doesn't say the confused or baffled part, but I assume that's the only way they can do that. Also, with all 4 of the Guardians, including the Electric Fairy one that we knew about before, they have an exclusive Z move. Which, why did I not write down what it was called? Give me one sec. Oh, I know why I didn't write it down, because it should have been obvious to me. Its Z move is called Guardian of Alola, and kind of like a signature move, it does a fixed amount of damage. Guardian of Alola will deal 75% of the target's remaining HP, and it just looks pretty damn awesome, if not hilarious. I'm having an odd feeling of deja vu. And all of this alone would be enough to make a new trailer, but they kept spelling out the new stuff. Good thing we got a Pokedex. Starting off with this interesting little bugger called Costmog. Don't get me wrong, it may seem a little weird, but I like it. It has the ability Unaware. It's a pure psychic type, and you need to go into the site to really learn more about it. At one time was only, well, it's considered a really rare Pokemon, only known to a select few in Alola. At one time, only the kings and their heirs had the Pokemon, and it was called Child of the Star. The Aether Foundation is researching this unusual Pokemon, and one of the Pokemon professors at the Foundation recently dubbed it Costmog. I have to give a big whenever the Aether Foundation is brought up. I don't know why I was trying to say warn or something like that. Not like I'm trying to give a warning. Besides its mysterious origin, it has another gimmick. It's very curious and shows no fear of people or Pokemon. If you show any sort of love or consideration to it, I assume even if you look at it right, it'll take an immediate liking to you. And site even goes to the point of saying that this often leads it to danger. It is a gaseous body, so it's also really lightweight. And on top of that, we got a new Alola form. Alolan Persian. I'm gonna get this out of the way now. This is probably my least favorite Alola form. Maybe just because of the drastic change in face shape, but it just rubs me the wrong way. But it could be worse. Oh, I remember what Fur Coat does, because I was looking at its abilities. It can get Fur Coat and Technician. Holy cow, it's got the Furfru ability. For those who don't know, Fur Coat is an ability that has all physical moves, so it basically is like huge power before defense, so it may end up having the defense of a normal Persian, but it'll actually be extra bulky just because of that ability. Unless you want the Technician set, which we'll have to see when the game comes out, which is more viable. But that just made me take a second look at this guy. Still pure dark, by the way. And it's got a bit of a history with it being related to rich people. Very hard to train because it doesn't grow attached to anyone, not even a trainer. And it acts dignified, but once the battle starts, you are in for the dirtiest fight of your life. That's at least what the flavor text says. Again, I may be paraphrasing. very badly. Last but certainly not least, we got a little bit more details on some battle-related things in the game. One of them I am almost confident is going to be post-game material. Let me start with the least interesting of the two, and oh boy, you're not going to believe me when I say it's the least of the two. So, in the lower region, it's kind of implied that there's no gym system with the way we've been introduced to the trial captains and the Kakunas. However, there is also no Pokemon League. Yet. Previous games have had a system where you battle the 8 gyms in the region, get the badges from each, then go into the Pokemon League, where you battle 4 trainers in a row with no healing break in between, minus your own item inventory, of course, and then take on the champion. While this doesn't exist in the lower region, there seems to be plans to construct one at the peak of a certain mountain. So it's being implied that once you complete all the island challenges, this league is going to be ready. And would you be able to take on the league and become the strongest trainer yourself? The fact that the gym system has heavily been implied to be changed is a pretty interesting twist in the formula already. While I don't think the fact that the league is not constructed yet is actually going to change the mechanics too much, i.e., I think you're still going to be able to do the Pokemon League after you beat all the Island Hakunas, the same way as you'd be able to take on the Pokemon League once you beat all the gyms. But I still find it interesting that they're going this route, implying that it's something that's new. I've seen some people talk about this, theorizing of all things about how you could be the one to test out the Pokemon League. I think it was actually mentioned on a podcast called the KayCast at one point in time, and I just find it really interesting that this is actually what's happening. That is, you're pretty much becoming the first people to actually try out a Pokemon League. You could easily be the first champion of a region. And I just find it cool seeing how something that I've been listening to actually comes full circles. Now, I do have to admit that I'm looking at this with a little bit of tinted glasses. The following piece of news will excite certain types of Pokemon players more than others. So maybe this is last but least, depending on your perspective. But you'll probably see why I'm hyped about it when I get into it, so let's do that instead of stalling. So, what I can only assume to be post-game material is something called the Battle Tree, where strong opponents await. Somewhere in the lower region, you'll find the Battle Tree, a place where trainers who have completed their island challenge or are strong enough to have done so, battle one another. All the trainers you encounter at the Battle Tree are strong. It seems you might even encounter 2 battle prodigies from the Kanto region. I wonder who. But first, more details on that. With the Battle Tree, you can scout the opponents that you won against so they can partner up with you in future battles. You may even see some familiar faces. And on the site, they show a picture of Cynthia with her Garchomp. So it does seem like a good sign that champions and other notable trainers, like maybe even gym leaders, will be popping up in this mode and you'll get to rebattle them. And honestly, I always like the modes where you can face off against a previous opponent that has a significant part of the plot in that, but without them holding back. Things like gym leaders with a full-fledged team, or even champions from previous games coming back for battles. Cynthia is pretty much the mascot of this at this point. She was a champion in the 4th generation, and I feel like she's been in every game since. Although I can't remember seeing her in the Kalos region, so it's possible she wasn't in there, but when you think of returning trainer, she just sticks in my mind first and foremost. But I can assume that other champions, maybe Wallace, who knows, maybe Lance, will be making an appearance. And as I was gonna say, I always like the molds that do this. Crying shame because Black and White 2 had a mold dedicated to just rebattling all the gym leaders and even the champions from all the regions, and I never invested the time to get far enough to even really battle any of the gym leaders again from the Unova, which is Black and White's region, again. But yeah, about that. It sounds a little forewarning and mysterious of who these Kanto champions are gonna be that we'll be meeting, but if you watch the trailer, you already know it's stinking red and blue. Green for the Japanese guys. And man, do they have interesting redesigns. They seem to draw them, at least for the concept art, and heck, even in the trailer, older than they were in previous games. There may or may not be people on the internet swooning, but it's the internet. What did you expect? I'm really hyped about this myself because, on top of the fact that I love when previous strong trainers return in future games, so you can actually fight against them with the new mechanics and features of said game, it feels like we're finally getting a continuation to something that they pretty much abandoned after Gold and Silver. Quick spoiler warning for those of you who haven't finished those games and finished the post game of them. After you become the champion in Johto, you do get to go around Kanto, defeating all the gym leaders there. While you're already a champion, you do get a reward for doing so, being the access to a region called Mount Silver. You reach the top of there, and what would you know, the champion of the first game, your character from the first game, Dub Red, is up there waiting for you. And it's the toughest fight in the series. He had the strongest levels back in those days, and it stood that way until the 4th generation, where Barry actually gets stronger than that version of Red after a certain number of rematches. But in the remakes of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they gave Red back his championship belt of toughest trainer in the whole series by buffing his levels up. I'll be honest, I don't recall if there's anything kind of like this in the 5th or 6th generation that might have dethroned Red's crown. But if that's the case, I get the strong feeling that he's going to be reclaiming his place as the toughest trainer of ever in this game when we face off against him there. Man, now I really wish I played more Black and White 2 just so I could feel more confident about my ramblings. Oh, Blue's there too. He's important, guys. Anyways, that'll do it for this edition of the KayCast. If you enjoyed this, first of all, thank you for staying for all this, even if you didn't enjoy it. In fact, if you got any constructive criticism for me, I will take it. I may not be able to implement everything I hear, but I definitely take into consideration. I am doing this for the audience, so I do want to make it the best I possibly can. But if you did manage to sit through all this and somehow liked it, I encourage you to express that you did, either on the forum that you're watching this on, for a YouTube like, Podbean like, or whatever audio sources I manage to get working eventually. If you want to keep up to date with me or just talk about things on a more social media level, I have a super casual Twitter page you can reach at Jacket Stuff. Be warned, I can talk about anything I please on there. And if you want just updates, there is a Facebook page at Jacket KLPs. And I have other social media accounts that I believe I mentioned elsewhere. Odds are if you search for me under Jacket K or Jacket K with the AY at the end, you'll find me. Plus, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have this neat thing called an annotation, or that I call an annotation despite never actually putting YouTube annotations on it. That'll tell you where you can find me. Well, this certainly has been a beefy episode. Probably a good 25 to 30 minutes just on SunMoon stuff. And Pokemon Go is probably going to be another 10 minutes of rambling. But hopefully I still have the will to, and of course the enthusiasm to do next week's. Either way though, I will see you for the next one. Okay?